All right. Have you ever apprehended a student possibly cheating or had a student ask you to change a grade?
I've had two particular instances that even now I can recall. I'm sure I had students cheating that I never caught. You try, but I did discover that once we had graphing calculators, that a lot of students were putting information between the lid and the calculator. So of course after that, when we used graphing calculators, all the lids had to go on the floor. The other instance in particular in my career that a young woman I caught cheating was for an exam, final exam in June. She happened to be an Asian student, and I walk around during the exams, but I was at my desk and then checking visually the room, and I noticed that she was writing on her paper, but her hand was rather cupped on the desk. Students don't do that. They put their hand like this. So when I saw this, and of course now and then her eyes would go down to the cupped hand. So I very quietly got up as it was an exam and walked around various parts of the room, ending up walking by her from behind her. And sure enough, it happened to be a geometry class and all of the formulas were there. So fortunately, it was at the beginning of the exam, fortunately for her. So what I did, I of course took the cheat sheet, I drew a line across her exam and just put a big X across the top of it. And just quietly said to her, all of those will be marked wrong. Because I didn't know if she cheated on me or not. Again, fortunately, it was at the beginning of the exam. And asked her also to see me after class. At that time, I had already had the experience of being a volunteer teacher in China with the summer program. So I probably had a better understanding of the Asian families than I would have if I had never had that experience. So what I asked her to do was to tell her parents that it had happened, which I knew would be tremendous. And she had to bring me a letter from her parents just stating that she had told them about the incident. And she didn't have to bring it to me. She could go to the office and ask him to put it in my box. So she didn't have to face me again, because that's very difficult for Asian students. And I did get the letter. I didn't really scrutinize it in really, really hard. Could a student have written it for her? It's possible. But I knew the lesson had already been given. She would not do that again, at least not soon. If it was written by her parents, that alone would have been enough punishment. And like I said, if it had written by a student friend of hers, still she knew. And that was the lesson to be learned. The other one was a student that asked me to change his grade, happened to be a he. And I can't recall, it was sophomore or junior. And again, it happened to be in June after the exams, and he had come in about his grade because he was kind of borderline. And he had a B+. And his average was 89.4. And of course, 89.5 would have given him an A-. But it was 89.4. And I was really rather shocked that he actually asked me to change his grade to the A-. And I explained that this is an average over a whole semester. It's not just like one test that you could change that grade. It would have changed it for the whole semester. And I explained that to him. But he kept saying, but it's 89. I said, yes, but it's 89.4, not 5. Well, he just could not understand why I couldn't fudge it. And I kept explaining to him I couldn't. It was mathematically not right. And he turned to me and he said, but I'm never going to tell anybody. And that kind of left me speechless. And my reply to him, and this is a long time ago, but I can remember it, my reply to him was, but I will know that I had done it. He totally could not understand why that would make any difference. But that was my position. I would know that I had done something that was not fair to other students to change his grade. And it was, it was a sophomore class. Like, it wasn't going to make or break him by the time he was a senior. So I never had the student again. So it was a large high school, so I don't know who else he had as teachers, but my explanation that I would know that I had done it, he just couldn't comprehend why that would make a difference.